All right.
All right, we are back.
We think we're
Are
back.
we? I think
Sometimes
we're
we
back.
wonder.
We're back. We're back at Smooches and Stabs with another installment of creepy romance. Romantic creepy. What is it?
Or intriguing and romantic. Possibly. It depends on what spin we place on it,
Yeah,
really.
we just gotta basically here at Smooches and Stabs, what we do is we pick historical oddities or
Yeah.
mysteries or things that you're not quite sure what happened anyway, and we put our own spin on it to see what we think it should be explained by.
Although I am trying to convince Jamie to take some things that are not on unsolved mysteries and put our own little spin on how they might have ended. I have all kinds of ways we could have ended Pride and Prejudice differently, which would be fun to do
Oh,
sometime.
I think we could do that. We could do
Maybe how it should have
I can
ended.
think of lots of ways to end Pride and
Oh, I
Prejudice
know what you
differently.
could do with it. Somebody will be dying,
There
no
are some
doubt.
things that Mr. Darcy needs to learn, and we need to put him in his place fast.
Hopefully not 6 feet under.
Well, there are some other characters in that book that deserve a little bit more page time. Just saying.
I think that Bingley was the hero of it all. He probably is a secret spy of some sort.
100%.
Puts on that facade and really he's something else.
100%. Yes.
So sometimes that would be fun to do just for a laugh.
Okay.
But today we are talking about the mystery of the ship, the Mary Celeste. And if you have
Yes.
never heard about the Mary Celeste, let me give you a little bit of information about it. It was a ship that sailed in the mid to late 1800s, and it just so happened that on December 5th in 1872, it was found completely abandoned.
Dun, dun,
Now,
dun.
right, that may not be a big deal. There are ships sometimes that are people get off of it because of a bad storm or
Bad
pirate.
food.
Yeah, pirates come by and take it
Poor
over.
service.
But here are the things that make people not know for sure what happened.
Okay.
So another ship called I'm going to totally abuse this word, but the Dei Gracia, it was sailing about 8 days after the Mary Celeste sailed on the same route. Okay. So
Okay.
the captain of the Dei Gratia, whatever, found the Mary Celeste completely abandoned. And it was abandoned near, let's see where it was abandoned. Abandoned near some islands. I'll pull that up in a minute. So whenever the captain's crew went on to see what was going on, they found that all the food was still there. Nothing had been stolen. The captain's log was there, but was the last entry was 8 days prior.
Okay.
The people who had been on the ship, all of their belongings were still there.
Okay.
The ship looked like it had been through some heavy weather. The part of the sail was down. There were some strange cut marks on the outside of the ship, like sword axe kind of marks that were there, but not prevalent. But they were there, located.
Right.
There was the idea that there might have been blood on the captain's sword, which was placed under his bed, and just a lot of just uncertainty. So the captain of the new ship split his crew, brought the ship into port, and said, "Well, what's happened?"
Right.
On the ship was captained by let's see if I can find the captain's name.
Benjamin
What?
S. Briggs.
Yes,
Yes.
Benjamin Briggs and his wife and their 2-year-old daughter were aboard the ship. The 2-year-old daughter's name's Sophia. So the captain had brought his wife and his daughter along. There were just the crew and the captain and his family. The family, Captain Briggs had an older son who was 7 who was stayed behind to go to school.
Oh.
So we have now an orphaned son somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Who's grown up and got married and had his own family and whatever, but was left without mother, father, and sister. Evidently, no one ever found. Okay, so they were found near the Azores Islands. Now, no one has ever heard what happened to any of these people. The lifeboat was gone.
Okay.
The captain's navigational equipment was gone, but nothing of any wealth was gone. I mean, everything that if a pirate was going to come get the ship, they
They
would
would
have
have
taken the
taken,
cargo.
right,
Right? There
right,
was lots of
right.
whiskey on board, lots of alcohol on board.
Do not leave the whiskey behind.
And pirates, right?
Sheesh.
And there were the belongings of the seamen. Now the only belongings that
I literally,
were
you said the belongings of the seamen, and my brain interpreted that as the remains of the seamen.
oh no
And I'm like, wait, I thought there weren't any dead bodies, but no, these are the
no
belongings. So like their backpacks, their
right
clothes,
right
their
their
okay, got
clothes
it.
things like that like his wife's things were left behind,
That's
you
unusual
know,
for a woman.
exactly. Now they were only a few miles, the last mention from the captain's log, as they were like I think 2 or 5 miles off of this Azores island, so those islands were within visibility distance.
Okay.
And that's the last log that was written in the captain's log that anyone knows of. The log disappeared in the late 1890s.
How does that happen?
I have no idea, but that it's not been located since.
Hmm.
And that is basically the story. So there's this, what I think it was seven or nine crewmen, and
Hmm.
then captain and his little family, and they're nowhere to be seen. Missing lifeboat, a floating ship that could have easily 10 days or 8 days before, if they had gotten off into a lifeboat for whatever reason,
Hmm.
could have drifted as far as it did for the day Grazia to find it.
Right.
So that is what we have now. There was some speculation that the captain of the Dei Gratia did something, and but there was no proof ever found that he did anything, and there was no reason,
I was just saying, what's
motivation.
the MO or like what's the
Right.
motivation for that?
There was some thought that the fumes from the alcohol had caused them to be afraid that the ship was going to explode, so they got out of the ship and went over to the Azore Islands, but no one's ever heard of them again, the people. And that doesn't make any sense because there were 1,000 and some barrels in the ship's hull,
Right.
and only seven were empty, and none of the fumes were still going on in the ship, if that was the
Hmm.
case. There
Hmm.
was also the possibility, the thought that, which is kind of exciting and sad, that two of the crewmen went crazy and massacred everybody, but there was no blood found except what was mentioned on the sword. And if that was blood,
If that was blood, right.
right, and nothing else. So if it was a massacre of all these people, you would think there would be more of a crime scene to notice. But no,
Yeah, because
there
I'm
you
sure
have
back then they weren't like, pulling out the bleach and the scrub brushes and the plastic gloves and covering their hair so there's no DNA left on
right,
this.
especially in the
Yeah.
middle of the ocean.
Well, yeah, no. Unless somebody just, knocked him unconscious and threw him overboard, then you wouldn't have blood.
That's true, and no, but no bodies were found, and they would float for a while. You especially think a
Unless you weigh him
child.
down.
That's true.
Because if
That's
there's
true
seven
too.
barrels of well, was it 7 barrels of missing alcohol or just
They were
opening?
empty. They were just
Oh, they were
empty.
empty.
Yeah.
And was it
So
drinkable alcohol or was it like denatured? Because I've seen some websites that claim it was denatured and it would kill you if you drank it.
I don't know. I don't know. But regardless, I mean, nothing was stolen.
Right.
It didn't look, and the captain took his, or somebody took his navigational equipment.
See, that makes me believe like they abandoned ship.
That gives, and that's what everybody kind of moved toward the idea that they must have abandoned ship for some reason, but what reason? And why wouldn't the captain have gone to find uh someone to alert so that they could be found?
Unless he thought the boat was going to sink.
If he thought the boat was going to sink, true, but would he have left his log there with the note that they had abandoned ship and for those reasons? Because the
Yeah,
captain's
it does.
log
Yeah. They all
Captain's
just
log is like his diary, right? To let people
right.
know what happened on this ship. And the Mary Celeste sailed for years after.
Right, it did. I saw that, and but it seemed like it was cursed, like it kept getting into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
It
last guy
eventually
who had
sank.
it, yeah. The
Yeah.
last guy who had it ran into ground to try to get the insurance money for it.
Well,
And then
you
it
know,
sank after that. Yeah. So
yeah.
so there's a lot of interesting things about it and what happened. What happened to the Mary Celeste? What happened to the people on there? Well, the Mary Celeste was fine. Why were there
Yeah.
markings? Where did the people go? Um,
What happened to little Sophia?
what
She's
happened to little
two.
Sophia? I know she's somebody I want to write about now. Um,
I think she turns up in history at some point.
what were those missing babies we talked about one time where the
Mm-hmm.
daughters were caught in
Mm-hmm.
history and found and
Right.
like time hopping? Maybe she's one of those because it was always girls that were missing.
So it was found abandoned in 1872, and she was two. So she was born in 1870. Let's say she lived for 90 years. I have to pull out my calculator. So if she equals, why is it not working? 1870 plus 90
90,
equals
be
19. She would have died in
1960.
1960 if she was
Right,
90.
right.
So that means her prime years would have been right around the 1900s, 1920s. Wow. That opens an entire can of worms.
Well, but isn't that also the time period of a certain author that we no, 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 a certain the whole Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stuff. He was writing in that late 1800s, early
Yes.
1900s time period.
Mm-hmm.
Authors seem to sneak into all these stories somehow.
They do.
The authors are time travelers.
They are. We know that, but nobody else is going to believe us.
So I know you will not be surprised, but the fact that I want to bring up the very obvious possibility of mermaids in Atlantis again, because people keep discounting the validity of this possibility. We keep seeing them reemerge, and people just, I think there's a pattern here.
I think you're right. I do think you're right. Um, although neither of us write fantasies, so now we're
Well,
going off into a different genre.
I
But
don't
let's
write
let's
published fantasy.
Oh, so you're telling us you have manuscripts in a drawer that you're going to share after
I,
the podcast is over?
yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah, I have
perfect.
actually a paranormal and fantasy that I've written in the past. I'm a
What?
big I'm a big werewolf fan. I'm a huge fan of werewolves.
But you can't read my books because they're too scary.
Why not? They don't have
Let's
to be
just take a step back
scary.
here. Forget about Mary Celeste and let's talk about Pepper and the paranormal.
Let me just tell you this. You're going to appreciate this so much. One of the first stories I ever wrote that was beyond my little bitty girl time was my junior year of high school. And I wrote a story this is why I have trouble with genre, sticking with the genre. It was a mystery, thriller, romantic, historical novel about this girl who was trying to solve the mystery of this ghost in this castle,
Ooh.
and then he ends up coming to life at the end, that kind of thing. Uh, and so I was see, this is why I can't stick with genres. But again, you got the paranormal, you got the mystery, you got the
And what you all didn't know is this is a perfect segue to announce Pepper's new podcast, Pepper's Paranormal.
that sounds so ridiculous. I
It
can't
does
even
sound really
say.
funny. It does sound
But
really funny. Okay, so Mary Celeste and Mermaid. I mean, if there were like, see, the thing that is weird about this is if there are slash cut marks, scrapes on the outside of the Mary
right.
Celeste.
Around
That's
it. Are you reading that? Are you reading that? Those markings are there?
No, I'm just copying what you said because I
See,
trust
well,
you.
so that's what
But
led some people to think it was a sea monster. That attacked the ship and pulled the people overboard. But again, the captain's devices, the navigation equipment I mean, unless the
Well, maybe,
octopus
well, if
is
it was a mermaid, they might have wanted to learn more about humans and
that's
understand
true,
how they
part of
found their
this
way.
world. So they'll know how to call them a snarf whatever humdinger, whatever it was
A
that
humdinger,
Ariel.
a
Um,
thingamajig.
a thing. Yes. So one of the things I think that would be interesting to, besides it being possible mermaids or a sea monster or aliens, we have the possibility of aliens as always. Um, is if they did abandon ship because let's say the they'd gone through some rough storms right before the captain's last log.
Right.
And if for some reason the captain felt the ship was unsafe and
Mhm.
they were within land where they could get to somewhere safe, then what happened to them? Assuming that happened, what happened to this group of what, 12 people
Right.
once they got on the island?
Right. But the weird thing is, so I'm looking at a website here and it's talking about how Briggs said he would never abandon the ship. And the only reason that he would was to save his life, but the voyage was what would matter to him the most. And he took on a first mate called Albert Richardson, and he picked him specifically so if anything happened to Captain Briggs, Richardson would be able to direct the ship and captain the ship. So he didn't have plans of just ditching. Now, it is interesting, though, because I'm reading on this website, too, where the ship's charts were scattered all over the place. And two of the pumps that would have pumped water out were disassembled, like they were concerned that the boat was filling with water. But here's my question: when the boat was found, it's not flooded. So wouldn't
Right.
you think before you abandon ship, you're going to really make sure that it's
But another
flooding?
right, another thing that I saw related to that was that one person speculated that the captain didn't know how much water was coming in because there were so many barrels of alcohol.
Mhm.
He couldn't assess the damage appropriately with his
Okay.
visually, and so he may
Yeah.
have made a gut call. But that still, none of that seems to make sense. What if what's the wife's name?
Oh,
We
I don't
just
know.
I saw it's listed here, Sarah.
Sarah.
What if Sarah is really a pirate and she has been having contact with other pirates and she made plans ahead of time for them to be attacked? And she's maybe having a liaison with a pirate, Captain Jack. Who knows? I don't know.
Jack
But
Sparrow.
I was right.
Whoosh.
What if she's been swayed to that side because she's learned about the seafaring world because she's been on her husband's ships with him. So this is
Mhm.
a world where she understands the lingo, knows how it works. And so she's set up for the ship to be attacked, but obviously it wasn't attacked
Right.
enough to dismantle it.
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't, and she said, we don't need to take any of the stuff because I don't want people to know what's happened to us. I don't want them to come looking for us as pirates. I want to
Mhm.
completely start over, which means Sophia Briggs would have to die.
Right.
Sophia would become a pirate in the world of piracy, and the crew could either choose allegiance or be,
Oft. Right. That's a possibility.
unless Briggs was really a pirate.
That's also a possibility. Um, hmm. This leaves a lot of question in my mind, though, because what would Sarah's motivation be to become a pirate? I mean, I get the point that pirates, we've got the stereotypical pirate, but those were back in the 1700s. So
True.
we're at almost the turn of the century here into the
Right.
1900s.
More privateer.
Yeah, so it's not like, we're still gold hunting, and I mean, yeah, I suppose there's some of it, but they're going to be more into, at this point in time, pirates are going to be trading stolen goods, smuggling people. They're going
What
to
if it's
smuggle
less about
people.
piracy and more about romance?
Oh gosh, I knew we were going to go there.
Everybody dies. I mean, romance is one of the top reasons why murder happens.
Well, that is true.
It's an act of passion. Now, I
Mm.
don't like the idea of this story because it's not a happily ever after. I don't
Oh,
like
okay.
offing off husbands, but unless, I don't like that idea. But,
No. Unless
but
what, though? You had a caveat. Listen up, people. This is the one justification theologically to off your husband.
Self-defense, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. We'll edit that part out. No.
but it would make better sense if I wanted my story to be a happy story.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no, of course, historical data. But there's no historical proof for mermaids in Atlantis either. But
Say,
that Briggs set this all up as a plan and wanted to move into, or he's in trouble somehow financially, or has a secret
that could
thing
be.
he's trying to cover. And so the way to do that is to disappear and come up as somebody else. I mean, people did that, would die or disappear and then re see
That
that
was my dad. That
even
was
your
my
dad likes
dad
it.
calling.
Yeah. So,
Well, okay. So, I have a thought coming. My dad keeps trying to call me. I'm going to edit this part out.
I'm gonna send you pictures of Maddie.
Let me text Chloe and tell her to call. Poppy, please. He's trying to call me. I'm still on a podcast. Okay.
And they're saying, why are you guys still on your podcast?
Probably, right? At least I actually subscribe to an editing service where I can even edit video out now, so I can take this out of the YouTube portion, which is great. Okay. So back to the theory. Here's one thing that we haven't touched on yet. Okay. You're gonna love this.
Oh dear.
I'm concerned because so far the things that you've brought up as possibilities and theories have been fairly devious, really, when you think about it. Mine's romantically based. There's some deviousness in it, but mine's romantically based.
We're rubbing off on each other. This could be.
It's sad. It's so sad, but this is what's popped into my brain. I'm going to go a little bit with your mermaid theory.
Okay.
All right.
And the mermaid romance and the mermaid theory. Wow.
I know.
I'm think not even sure
really
how to feel.
And I think this is why no matter how you scour the internet, you're never going to find this theory because people just aren't willing to believe in mermaids. And, well, some people, but those who do will find this to be very believable.
Clearly, I'm going to love it.
Clearly, you're going to love it. I think what happened was one of the oh my goodness. One of the crewmen, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Give it some pause so I can edit this out. Okay, my theory is that one of the crewmen, all right, fell in love with a mermaid at one point in his journey at sea. Somehow he came across a mermaid. They fell in love. And they've had to devise a way to be together. Okay?
Right.
In the process of devising this way, she says that to save her mermaid people, it can never be linked back to anything suspicious about mermen or mermaids. And it's inevitably going to be questioned if there's murder, etc., etc. So they concoct a scheme to take the smallest boat he can become part of a crew of. And this boat only had a crew of 8. So we're not talking a huge ship, right? We're talking 8 crew members. He'd be one of them. So really 7 crew members that he has to figure out what to do with. The captain, his wife, and the baby. All right.
And he may not have known that the wife and the baby were going to be on there, so he didn't want them to be a part of it.
They were kind of a twist in the story that he didn't expect. But really what's happened is they never really intended to kill anybody. They just intended to take them captive as a gift to the mermaid's king, because she needs to give him something to receive permission to wed a human. So really,
trade.
the story doesn't end well for the 7 crew members and probably not for Captain Briggs, his wife, and his daughter.
I don't know.
However,
The daughter, who knows what could happen to the
maybe,
daughter?
I don't know.
She wouldn't
She could be the
remember anything.
sequel. She could be the sequel. She was raised among the mermen.
That, or the mermaids have the ability, or Atlanteans, or whoever took them, have the ability to help people lose their memory. So that's why you have people coming out who are shipwrecked,
See?
who don't remember things.
Don't remember things.
And
See?
so they don't know who they are.
Right.
They end up on this island and they're discovered and they have to start a new life because they don't know who they
Start a
are.
new life. Right. And our crew member has successfully become part.
And the only
of-
person who does have a memory that's not wiped is a 2-year-old because she's too young.
Right.
They think she wouldn't remember anything.
So she's the crazy lady when she's 80 years old telling these awful stories about mermaids. And
She becomes a writer.
yeah. See? Now you know the truth about my family, Pepper.
We have it. We solved it.
We solved it.
Perfect.
Mystery of the Mary Celeste has been solved. Romance has been appeased. Deviousness has been appeased. I think we have been successful today.
We want to know what you think happened on the Mary Celeste. If you want to do your own research, we'd love to hear what you find out. And if you want to create your own story to add to what you think happened, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, always remember something profound that we don't really have to offer you today.
That's right. Exactly.
So,
we're
remember,
here for your entertainment and possibly
whatever
concern.
that profound thing is, and watch out for mermaids and falling in love with them because it will
That's the profound. We forgot to mention one thing. I'm sorry. One thing. At some point, we're going to have to talk about, could it have been sirens? Because they would easily get the crewmen off, but what would happen to the women because they don't fall prey to the siren song?
Maybe there was a handsome merman.
Exactly. There is how we solve that problem.
There, we solved that problem. So that thread's been solved. Pepper, I think we're okay. Oh, well, everybody, thank you for joining us with this episode of Smooches and Stabs. Join us next time as we solve all the world's mysteries and problems with a little bit of romance and a little bit of murder.
And quite a bit of fantasy going on today.
Yeah, today was a little unreal. Could have done.
See you guys.